Greetings and welcome to Paint Here Now. I am Will Parody, and today we are going to continue our exploration of complementary colors and the things that we can do with mixing them together. So last time we mixed red and greens and explored with what reds and greens it can do with white, and what we did was we made a bit of a landscape out of the red and the green and the white, just using those colors. And what we're going to do today is we're going to also make a landscape, kind of a painting, using just blue and orange. In fact, let's show you here. We had, so just in our short time that we had, now this is using only red, green, and white. There's no blue in here, no orange or yellow, just red, green, and white. 2 reds, 2 greens, white. And we got all of these different colors, all of these different faded colors, even things that look almost blue in a sky and water without using any blue at all. So we're going to do something similar to see what kind of colors and what kind of landscape we can get with orange and blue. And if we can even get any kinds of greens, I don't know, but we'll be able to do something. Green is a nice color, of course, for landscaping. It gives you a lot of opportunities. But we can do a lot of neat stuff with orange and blue. So that's what we're going to explore today. So this was a couple weeks back, we explored orange and blue, only orange and blue, just mixing together to see what happens. No white or anything. Our lighter colors in here are because of thinned out paint and or using the white of the paper to come through. But you can see there's already a feeling like you could get a landscape or something out of this, in a seascape, something. So this is just an amazing amount of different colors, darks, almost blacks, browns, and grays that you get from just mixing these oranges and blues together. And then we came back the next week and looked at orange and blue with some white. You can see the difference and similarities. Anyway, yeah, if I flash it for like 1 second. Let's see, like that and like that. So you see white brings up a whole new range of color, tone, hue, opportunity, feelings, emotions, and all that sort of thing. And so, that being said, now we are going to work on a painting with orange and blue and white. Make a bit of a painting and maybe a landscape out of it. We'll show you what we use. I have the old trusty ice cube tray. We're going to use a couple different blues here and oranges and some white. I like to use an ice cube tray. I wouldn't go out and buy any kind of a palette or palette paper or anything. Just, these are acrylic paints. They dry quickly. You can peel them off after a while, you know, and on a plastic surface or glass or something, and keep reusing that. And I believe in reusing materials, stuff you might otherwise throw away if you can as your art supplies. So brushes and our little cup here. I'm going to use this brush. And that being said, let us flip the page and get to some painting. All right. So we're going to do something kind of similar to what we did last time. We're going to take some white and spread it around a little bit in certain spots up in the top of the page, the canvas or paper, whatever you're using, paper in our case. Take a little bit of water on my brush and just blend it in just a little, thin it out a little bit in some areas and spread it, get it around. It'll dry pretty quickly. So now what I want to do while it's still a little bit wet is add some of my blue. Oh, whoops. There we go. In some areas. Because we have the opportunity to use blue, we might as well have some bits that could be part of the sky. So anyways, we're starting off by just adding our colors. We're going to do most of our color mixing right here on the surface. And with paper, it can be a little bit difficult, to be honest, because it does dry quick and it's very absorbent. If you're using canvas, you'll find it's a bit smoother. I mean, it'd be easier perhaps. But that's okay. If you can learn to mix colors this way right on the surface that you're working on, It can go a long way to help you build a painting, honestly. It's like it's all being kind of birthed and found right there on the page and brought and pulled together. So you see, we have a nice gray color here. Definitely kind of a good cloudy kind of a color. You know, and we'll just mix that into some of these areas. They'll all be a little bit different, and that's good. Add things here and there. And then just blend out in a little bit here and there. Now, if you look at clouds, right, it's not like there's this big circle here and a square here, or this, like, it's all a vibration of lights and darks, color and form. You know, it's a real changing thing, and it's got depth, but they move. They're, you know, clouds, you know, they're very whimsical. So we want our colors to be that way too. We don't want to try to replicate, oh, we need to paint this like this, and especially with something that's coming from our imagination and that's more of a color mixing exercise. We want to be able to just allow ourselves to explore with the color mixing process in and of itself and see how our imagination can take us to clouds. So really, art making is very much about the imagination and your connection to the process and the materials, even more so than the subject that you're doing. If you can incorporate a subject into a very strong relationship with art making, with the process of the materials, then you really got something. But for me, the subject really never comes first. Subject is found through the art making. Art is first. So there we go. So just gonna keep adding some whites and stuff. And you know what? Because we have some blue, it's gonna be a nice sky. We're gonna bring it down a little bit. Have a big sky in this picture. So, a little bit of water in here, touch of blue, with some thinned out water. That the water's already on there, so it just spreads out nice. Even without white, I'm taking a blue that you could see was dark and making it look more like a sky color that we might see. It doesn't need to be perfect. Just moving it around. There we go. Adding, you know, and then it's okay to touch your clouds and some of your other colors in here because it all sort of blends together. And we're going to be adding layers and doing that sort of thing. I think it's important to remember the power of layers in painting. It's one of the great evolutions of it. And I think that people forget how important, or maybe people don't realize just how powerful paint can be as it is built on top of each other and layered. The color thickness, the changes, the textures, the formation, with a compositional movement of the eyes in space as you layer paint. So if, for example, if I was going to do a painting just on the surface, so this block's going to be this color red within my line, and then this one, it's a very, you're stopped. So like, I never like to paint something thinking that this stroke of paint is going to be the final thing here and that there's nothing going to come on top of my strokes of paint. If I allow for paint to work on top of paint, you just get so many more opportunities for layers, for textures, for movement, for composition, for serendipity, for automatous composition, for everything. I think that being able to take the gift that paint offers, which is that you can keep painting on top of paint. You know, if you can't necessarily sculpt that way. I mean, you can build a sculpture, I guess, that just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But with paint, it offers a lot of opportunity to layer before it gets totally unmanageable and out of hand, size-wise or otherwise. So anyways, we're just still washing in a little bit of this blue. We're using acrylic paint, almost like watercolor. And you can tell too, it's not necessarily supposed to be done that way, just by the fact that if it was watercolor, you wouldn't get the big stains of these darks. It would spread more. Watercolor will tend to still be water, even if it dries, water can still affect it. But acrylic paint becomes more like plastics once it's dry for the most part. There it is. So, add a little bit. Now, I could be using a bigger brush for a number of reasons, to cover more space, to make the strokes feel a little bit more even. I don't necessarily like to do that though. If I wanted the sky to be more smooth and washed, like without seeing any strokes or marks or movements, I might use a larger brush and more back and forth in different blending techniques. But painting oftentimes, I'll put it this way, and you can see it in the work of the Impressionist, Post-Impressionist. The energy of painting and the power of the stroke and the movement of it is what brings a lot of the power, and a lot of the, the feeling and everything to the painting, more than just trying to replicate what your eye might see in the subject matter. There's a lot of power in the variable of movement and jagged, quick strokes. Jackson Pollock studied under Thomas Hart Benton a bit, who is an American painter, and he did different landscapes, types of scenes and different stuff like that of the West and farmlands and a number of different things, a lot of stuff. But there was something that started to get more jagged and movement and action-like in a lot of his work. And Pollock wasn't influenced by the subject matter so much, but his work definitely had an action, and in fact, the word action painting, the phrase action painting, basically comes from the work of Jackson Pollock. So there's something about those jagged strokes. And see, there's some life in this already. Now we're going to add some more white into things and start, now that we've, got some sky. It's a cloudy day, but there's some blue sky coming through. Add some highlights in some areas, really bring out some of the depth or puffiness of some of the clouds. Work it in a little bit. And then we're going to keep adding the complement to some of these areas. Again, this orange. And it looks kind of out of place, doesn't it? But watch, once we add a little bit more, we mix it with some of the blue, we're going to get that grayish color that's going to be a nice shadow for our clouds. Mix it right there. A bit of white, a lot of bit of white. And there we go. Another gray that we can add in. Some more white. And again, like clouds, it's just a mixture. It's sort of just a mixture, a dance of lights and darks. Light grays and dark grays, And so allow that to be in your own piece. And just paint it in, have fun with the movement. It's one of the things I really enjoy too. You get it in clouds and sometimes in water, is you can really appreciate the movement, the kinesis of painting. The power of the action of just moving around and being able to be fluid, spread the paint, and actually get something that has a semblance of, looking like something. You want to make some clouds, make them actually look like clouds, you can paint them this way. Someone will look at this and they'll see some clouds. And we just keep building. I want a little bit more of my complementary gray. Isn't that neat though? Orange and blue, and you get a color like this. I think it's really, really fascinating. A little bit more blue in this. You know, and with this orange, I decided kind of not to, but could always change. But we could emphasize the orange in the sky and the clouds, and then you can have a sunset or a sunrise kind of a scene with just orange and blue. Maybe we will do that sometime. This is an activity, an exercise I want to continue to explore. Okay, a little bit more fuzzy kind of at the bottom, you know, as it gets more in the distance and hits the horizon line, which is where the land meets the sky, more or less, or the water, depending on what you're painting. And I'm kind of at an angle here, so it's a little bit awkward for me. Wonder the way I'm painting to catch, you know, to make sure there's a certain parallelness as opposed to a big angle. Not that too matters too much. And just bringing it down where it's a little bit foggier there at the bottom. And we can always go back, and I might do this if it, you know, and add some more highlights and shadows. But see, it's amazing with just adding a little bit of strong white in some of these areas we'll do. Just little strokes. Don't necessarily want to overdo it. And just brings out a lot more of what's going on. Brings out some depth, some more cloudiness to the clouds. This needs a little bit more gray. Then cruise along to what's happening underneath the sky. Orange. It's always better to have a little bit less color than you need and then add a little bit more rather than going too much, especially if it's really dark. So that's a nice little mix. Gonna spread this some with a little bit of the water, a little bit on the orange side. There, that brings it down some. And now I'm just kind of spreading it into this area that was up top here. Felt a little bit, and it still does, but you'll see what happens. But it just felt like it wasn't working right, so I'm just adding in some extra shadows, some extra darkness in here. To just sort of make it look like there's some deep dark clouds in there, and then I'll come in again with my white, now that I feel this is more connected to what's going on, what has been, and then add some of these highlights. Maybe this top of this cloud is getting a little bit closer to us. Sometimes those big clouds will look like they're closer up on top. So we'll emphasize that by just adding some good strong highlights in these areas, some of these areas. And then we'll come in with just a little bit more of a shadow underneath. Something like that here. And we'll get that looking a little bit more blended in here. All right, starting to feel like this is coming out a little bit more. And you know, you can just sort of keep going, and maybe this one's starting to pop out a little bit out in here. And so anyways, we have some idea of clouds. We could go back through and make this feel a little bit better here and there, and look at things after they dry. Oh, that to me is a little bit nicer. Anyways. I could almost flip this upside down and have like a water scene. Have you ever taken pictures of the ocean and looked at them and not been sure which way's up and which way's down? I have. It's a real thing. It's so amazing how much the sky can look like the water. And there we go. Definitely, as I'm looking at this, needs more white. See, that's a great thing too about layering paint. It lets you discover, what the painting needs, what's going to work the best, and just really helps to build it up. It's like the whole process right there. Okay. A little bit more in here, and then let's move on. We have a bit of a sky. You can see this, and the more you keep painting and adding here and there, you'll be able to find things that really work nicely and be able to bring this out some, to define it. If you're actually painting from something you're looking at, you can come in with a little bit more of the shadows and define. It's a little bit of your gray that's kind of lightened up. Come in here and do that kind of thing, really bring out some more of the cloudiness here and there of it. These little subtle colors, touches. Just bring out some of that element. So we can keep doing that, but we're going to be moving on here. So where it's obviously very blue heavy, but we did have some orange. You can still see it in here, but it makes for some nice grays. Just something like that. Just, bring in a little bit here and there. So, I keep talking about moving away from the sky. Maybe I'll actually do it. Aha, all right, well, that'll make it happen. So I'm adding some orange right here. This is essentially going to be where the sky meets the ground, something like that. Now I'm going to take a slightly darker blue that I've been using, what I've been using, and add it right in here, and then mix it like this. Add a little bit more. That blue. I'm just going to kind of, I like mixing this way. You'll see, like what if I'm mixing a color in on the canvas, right up to the line that I want, more or less, I'm doing these loops and circles, and it's helping to blend things in. It's capturing some of the top line, but it's okay if it doesn't get everything. It's okay if it goes a little over, and just kind of mixing it in like this. This very interesting brown color we now have. It's orangey brown, sort of maybe a deserty, rocky kind of a color. Makes a little bit more some brown. It's a little bit richer to come out. Well, first of all, I'm going to take this. This is going to start coming out a little bit more in here. Let's blend this here. So this almost looks, in fact, I like that. Maybe these are some distant sort of hills and mountains even. Make sure we have a little bit more of our gray mixed in. And then we'll come in and emphasize some of these, like they might really be in the distance like that. Why not? Just get this stroke here. Let's maybe some interesting shaped little hills there. There in the distance. Come in and add some more of that. Right up in here. What's going on? Little hills. way in the distance. And you see there, I have a little bit more blue in these colors that I'm using, right? You can see that into the orange, so it's making more of a gray, which makes it feel like it's more in the distance. And it really helps to separate it from some of the other areas. I'm just gonna go to the end so you can see how it kind of, you've got a new sense of depth there. So now we're gonna take some of our more rich color, come up again in here, but with a little bit, we're still a little close to the back. So you can see we use a little bit more of a pure color as we get closer to, and maybe there's some land separations there. You can see just by adding these strokes and painting this way, you can start to, your imagination can start to see how this can turn into a different kind of a landscape. You know, is there a ridge here or something like that? You know, what's there? Is there a separation or just more hills? And just kind of let the mind wander with the brush strokes, because one of the great things, and I think this is pretty elemental about art, is that there's things in nature that will evoke in us a larger picture of nature. So, you know, you can see a little bit of this bit of a rock might look like a antelope, and then before long the entire rock wall is covered with antelope. And it's a similar idea. You make these strokes. Oh, this looks a little bit like hills in the distance, so we'll highlight them out and make them look more like hills in the distance. Painting is really about allowing it's about a lot of things. I emphasize, and I really want to highlight the joy of the imagination that the painting stimulates, without having an image, a subject matter, or even a real idea in mind. In this case, yeah, we're going for a landscaping thing, but it's more about the joy of painting, the feeling, the mixing, the seeing what happens when we mix different colors. So, in order to supplement our landscape, or to keep working, to have different colors and bring bolder browns into the front, I'm using a little bit of our more fluorescent orange. Look at that. That's almost purple. That's a beautiful color. Add a little bit more orange to just brown it up just a touch more. And maybe these are some, I don't know, other kinds of, some stones popping up. But just look at this. I mean, we can bring up all kinds of different things to emphasize what this kind of scene might be, but it's very, very clearly, just from some back and forth strokes, mixing only oranges, blues, and whites. And down here, pretty much just oranges and blues, we have something that is very much a recognizable scene. And we can add all kinds of things to bring that out in different ways, or to change it. Right now, I just sort of want to get some coverage of my scene here and bring it on down. And even though we're using some blue here, we're not going to necessarily do water. I don't know. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try something just for fun. That's really what this is. What happens if we make this to be, what if this is some stream or something coming up? Maybe we can see that it continues down here. And maybe it disappears. I don't know. Just playing around. Maybe there's a little bit more of a lake down in here. And there's this network of water or whatnot going through this land, and then it disappears maybe back in here. It can be a number of different things. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. But I'm just a little bit curious. I was curious to try to see what happens. So add a little bit of white into my blue. Just back in here some too. I'm not convinced. Let's see. Like this is coming through and then dropping down a little bit down through here. Maybe. So you can do that. You can add some water. We could have made more of a scene, but instead of that, it's just not really working for me. I'm just going to go back to a nice little desert scene, but I'm not going to get rid of these. I think what we'll do is, rather than have this big emphasized blotch of water that doesn't really make a lot of sense, at least I don't think it did. See, just cover it right up. You know, using your some different oranges and blues. Nice colors. And then but it's going to seem like maybe, just maybe, behind some of these areas, there could be water or a river or something going on down here. So I want to emphasize a little bit of a rockiness here, like a rock formation. Like that. Coming in here, trying to keep this in the not super take a long time range. That even is a phrase. Okay, let's see. So I'm just going to continue with some rocks. In fact, I'm going to lighten it up a little bit here with underneath this dark area. So that kind of emphasizes this is separate. This still looks bold. Kind of pops this out some. And now what we'll end up doing here, first of all. So, hey, not too shabby, huh? Got a little something going on here. It's a nice little desert scene. Yeah, maybe there is a ridge back there. Maybe there is some type of a water or river. Just come up a little bit here to all right. And now what we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of white and mix it with some of our color that we have here. A little bit more orange, honestly. A little bit more white. And we're going to come up on some areas to highlight. So maybe there's some sun coming down in some of these rocks, emphasizing the front light, front and top light a little bit. And just, again, we're not really looking at rocks, but we know that rocks have shadow here, light here. They can be flat, curved, and round. So we use our brush strokes and you know, the colors to try to emphasize some of those rock characteristics without necessarily having to paint rocks. Just getting the idea. Mixing a little bit more of my light color. Some areas I want much lighter. It's okay to paint on top of all that dark. It makes the dark you keep that much kind of more powerful. A little bit in here. I'm going to, in fact, do a little bit of my wet brush and mix a little bit more color. Come in here a little bit thinner. Just sort of kind of just sort of blending, touching things up a little bit. And again, we're using very few colors, 3 colors, really. 2 different blues, 2 different oranges, and white. So 3 to 5 colors depending on how you want to look at it. So we're going to just do a little bit more. I want some stronger highlighted areas now. And again, that helps to emphasize a little bit stronger light. And look at that, layers, right? We didn't leave a place open to put this light in. We're painting on top, and it gives that texture, that thickness, of more of a reality to it. You're not, it's, I really do believe the more that you paint and layer and add it in, the more it becomes its own life and not just an emulation of an idea. So let me see. Oh, I don't like that. Down here, I don't. Oops. Just to, yeah, darken this part up a little bit. All right, well, there we go. Not a bad little piece, experimenting with complementary colors, mixing white, orange, and blue. 2 blues and 2 oranges. We get quite a range of different grays and browns and earth colors, some sky colors. You know, a lot of fun experimenting with paint in this way. So next time we're going to do similar thing with yellow, purple, and white. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of skies and things like that we get. It's going to be a different scene than what we have here with some of the blue that comes out. And it's one of the nice things about having blue in your palette is you can do things like this with the sky. But we can make gray skies. We can make a number of different skies and scenes with just complementary colors. So next time, yellow, purple, and white. Until then, keep having fun of making art, keep painting, and thank you all very, very, very much for your ear and your time.